Hi, everyone. I am host Brian Avery.
And I'm Shelley Lyle, and welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida.
This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you learn the ins and outs of different sport industry professions. We are excited to be with you all this week and with our special guest, Tom Farrey. Tom Farrey is the Executive Director of Sports and Society program at the Aspen Institute. Thomas studied communications at the University of Florida before becoming a reporter for the Seattle Times. Following this, Tom became an editor for ESPN Net Sports Zone and finally was a reporter for ESPM. So welcome, Tom. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Great to be here, Brian.
Definitely. So we're going to start off with your career journey. And if you could describe your journey from graduation until now, in a nutshell, if you will, I'd really appreciate it, just so we can gain some insight.
Yeah. So I'm one of those really lucky people. I'm not smarter than anyone else, but I knew what I wanted to do before a lot of kids did. I came into the University of Florida. The very first day I was there, I knew I wanted to be a sports journalist, right? I was at a part-time job with the Miami Herald and an assignment to cover the Gator football team, go to the practices, report back to the Herald what, was happening. So the very first day on campus, I went over to the Alligator and said, what can I do? And so I started working at the student paper and really just had my head down and had a very clear sense going into UF what how I was going to build my career, which was get good clips, get 3 to 5 really great clips that could impress a major metropolitan newspaper editor, and learn how to think critically and creatively, and write effectively. And so I didn't rummage around when I was at UF trying to figure. I just knew exactly what I wanted to do, and for better or worse, I knew what I didn't really care about. There, honestly, plenty of classes I was like, yeah, whatever. You just get by. I know my GPA isn't going to matter that much. It's going to be my clips that I get hired on. I'm going to build my career from the outset, and I was able to do that.
You're one of the rare ones that just knows. I deal with students all the time. Obviously, we have a lot of good conversations about possibilities within the various industries, and I always explain to them, volunteer, get as much experience as you possibly can, see the things you don't like, and maybe you'll find out what you do in some capacity. So it's really great to hear that from right out the gate, you do where you're going. So I do know that you work for the Aspen Institute, and I don't know if everyone knows what the Aspen Institute does. So we'd really love some insight with respect to that organization and your role in it.
Yeah, so the Aspen Institute, which I've been a part of for 10 years now, is a not-for-profit educational and policy studies group based out of Washington, D.C. Sometimes people call it a think tank. We're really more of a convener of thought leaders, influential people who can attack the most complex challenges in our society. So poverty, access to higher education, on and on. There are about 25 policy programs. I run one of them, which is the Sports and Society program. And our mission is to convene leaders, facilitate dialogue, and inspire solutions that help sports serve the public interest, right? So we have a set of opportunities and reports events we hold and reports we produce, and we just basically try to be a catalyst to help sport serve the public interest. Because in sport, for instance, I mean, it's a significant factor in American life, but it's not like we have a Department of Sports and Recreation to kind of connect all these silos and set a shared agenda and drive research priorities and fill gaps and make sure the energies are moving, not so much across purposes. It's just sort of this Wild West libertarian environment where you got all this energy and all this money, and people are pursuing their own narrow self-interest. Okay. And what we do is we say, okay, look, where's there some commonality here? Where can people partner, collaborate, organize around the best ideas?
You brought up something that's intriguing to me, is the priorities. How do you establish what those priorities are?
Well, you think, first you think deeply about what good looks like in our society. What kind of society, what does the good society in this country look like? I mean, what are our lives like? What are the dreams we have for our children? What are the dreams we have for ourselves? What kind of opportunity do we want to create? What kind of freedoms do we want to preserve? what does the best of American life look like? And then from there, once you develop a clear vision, then you can have a conversation around values. Okay, so what are the values that underpin this vision? What are going to bring that to life? And then you can have a conversation, once you create some agreement around that, around policies that support those values. And ultimately, maybe you have a conversation around the politicians or the business leaders or the partnerships that can support, those values and those policies or otherwise. But you've got to start with a vision. So in the case of, our work within the Sports and Society program, about 95% of it is on something called Project Play, which is all about building healthy kids and communities through sports. So what is, we've created a great degree of consensus around this idea of an America in which all children have the opportunity to be active through sports, right? Everybody agree on that? Okay, terrific. Now, what can you do? What can you do? What can you do to help bring that to life? And if that happens, then all boats, in theory, will be lifted. So that's how you begin. That's how you that's our theory on how you organize this disjointed space.
Okay. Yeah. I really appreciate that insight. Shelley, do you have some of that?
Yeah, I was going to say the complexity, the issues that you deal with, right? Like they might seem like, okay, one way on the surface, but really you got to dig down to the root of like the issues if you're dealing with, students who don't have access to play or recreation or things like that. So I think that it's pretty amazing that you can cast a vision that hits the U.S. And it is so wide ranging. You guys do a lot of research on various projects, and I think that that's really admirable. And I admire that you guys, like, those are huge projects. And I've lived overseas and worked in Rwanda and like the Ministry of Sport versus America, whose systems are very different, right? So you're dealing with maybe different systems that other countries don't have. So I think it's very cool, but I don't ever want to underestimate how much work and complex situations you guys have to manage and deal with to make it happen.
And we don't have, it's not like we're the government. I mean, nobody has put us in charge. It's not like we have large pots of money that we can throw at something. We don't have the ability to draft policy like Title IX that's going to change the game in sports. All we have is our convening power and our reputation as an honest broker of ideas that people can rally around. It's an enormous amount of work, but it's also very, very purpose-filled work and very gratifying.
Yeah, so I'm going to circle back for a second. And you said essentially when you're going around the room and you identify key figures that can assist in certain elements of creating these different opportunities, in your name comes up essentially. What is your role in that process? What are your functions and responsibilities? Where's your sweet spot, if you will?
Yeah, there's no one thing. I would just, first and foremost, I would say a catalyst. Mm-hmm. I'm a catalyst to have the right conversations, get the right people around the table, develop the frameworks, like what you see over my shoulder here, this is basically at the core of Project Play.
Okay.
Well, it's called Sport for All. The Sport for All, Play for Life, a playbook to get every kid in the game, right? Perfect. So we end up sort of being the packager of ideas, and then we use our convening power to bring people together. So at every stage, I'm a catalyst, and because I have a journalism background at the University of Florida, and I have the ability to create content that's going to support, that's hopefully going to be compelling, and not just be some boring white paper that's going to sit in someone's inbox.
I hear you. No, thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, and once, can you speak to a little bit of going from a reporter to the role you're in now, and what made you make that change, and how did you know it'd be a good fit for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I wanted to be since I was 17 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a sports journalist who looked at the intersection of sports and society. So race, gender, politics, business, technology, all of it. And I explored all that, first with the Seattle Times, where I was the first sports investigative enterprise reporter there. And then when I joined the Paul Allen Company Starwave in 1995, it was the early days of the internet, got all excited about being part of a new medium. I continued to explore those, worked for a show Outside the Lines on ESPN for many years, did cross-platform packages. And, I was that guy at ESPN, and later on we had more people like me who would be the one who would really take on the tough topic. I would put the subject in the hot seat and ask them tough questions about why did they defraud somebody, or why did this happen, or, this girl who got raped. If I'm a guy who would bring the heat, right? And stories would go out on the air, and people might respond to it. They might cry. They might feel something. And that was all really good. You stirred the pot, but I became a little bit frustrated, I guess, that, I would spend 3 months on a project and really hope that it would change the world. And then, 3 days after the story, people would move on. Maybe somebody got fired, and that wasn't my goal, of course, always. But I didn't see the policy changes occurring that would actually address that issue in a meaningful way. And I didn't see any entity in this country that was going to figure out what good looked like in sports policy. So there was a gap. And I've always been one of these people who really runs to, I've been thinking about it lately, I run to 3 things. I run to fire, I run to water, and I run to green space, meaning I see where a problem is, and I want to dig into it. I run to water, meaning I run to opportunity, and and that can support the work moving forward. And I run to green space, which means nobody's in that space, nobody's doing anything. And so this really kind of appealed to all 3 of those, and that's when I walked in with ESPN. I was on E60, which is one of their top shows. And I'm like, look, can I just focus? Can you put me on outside the lines where I basically don't have to do as much, and also, really build up this Aspen Institute program from nothing, from scratch, just with a mission statement. And ESPN was like, yeah, well, I don't know what Aspen is, but sure, went ahead and do it. And then as I created the program and the mission for the program and the ideas around it and products and events, it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and a lot of people organized around it. And eventually, I think ESPN just knew I kind of lost interest in being a national television reporter. And nothing wrong with it. I loved it, but I kind of played that out. And this is where my real passion, this is what it became.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you described it earlier, you have the coach mentality a little bit to me, like you're driven and you're going for it. And so it's cool to see you. I can imagine, you might have become a little more split in your passion set to move you into the Aspen Institute now. And so in your role, what are some skills you think you need to have to do what you're doing, especially to run an organization like you have? Can you speak to that for some of our students interested in the field?
Yeah, so it takes a lot. But look, UF has so many smart young people coming into the school. I never would have gotten to UF, by the way, with my SATs and GPA. So thank God that I came along at the right time. But it takes critical thinking skills, being able to look at a situation and break it down into its component parts. And then it takes creative thinking skills, being able to kind of identify where the opportunities are and then concept them, right? And put them together in some kind of a narrative, communicate them effectively, so knowing how to write well is super important. And then just, having some conviction around what you're doing means everything. People respond to people who believe in their work. So, I believe in this. This is not a tough thing for me to sell. When I have a conversation with whatever, ESPN or, the sports leagues or, whoever else, Nike or whoever else is part of our project, I'm not selling them on something I'm not selling them on any kind of widget. I'm selling them on something that is, is and should be a benefit to them. And fortunately, these people get it. These are not difficult conversations to have. So that would be my advice to folks. Think critically, think creatively, communicate effectively, and be passionate and pick the right topic for you, because then your work isn't really work, and people they understand the authenticity that you bring to the conversation.
Yeah. And what activities would you say in your current role do you really enjoy? You maybe find the most interesting, and then what are some challenges that you feel like, this is like I love what I do, but this can be challenging and hard, and might not be your favorite thing in the position.
Yeah, I mean, the most challenging thing for me is just managing everything, right? I mean, there's so much that we do with our little 6-person program, trying to rewire sports in this country, and there's so many stakeholders involved. There's so many people who are passionate about it as well. I mean, just like all the stuff showing up in my inbox and keeping people motivated in the right way and organized and efficient and people management skills and project management skills. It's a lot. I literally wake up every 3 a.m., 4 a.m. every morning thinking about this stuff. And I know I shouldn't be doing that, but I don't know, my brain's not big enough to have all that over there and also whatever. But so that's the greatest challenge, is just kind of organizing all of it. I mean, we don't create a product necessarily. It's not like we build phones and we go into a factory. I mean, our product is knowledge, and our product is organizing that knowledge. So how do you do that? A lot goes into it. That's really challenging. The rewarding stuff is, that those aha moments were like, oh my gosh, there's this incredible policy that is, for instance, there's this, I won't get too wonky about it, but there's a new federal policy opportunity that's emerged in the past 6 or 8 months that'll push, close to $1 billion of money into communities to build play spaces, right? A lot of people don't know about this. And so I get really excited about, ooh, wow, okay, let me think about this opportunity. Let me put it before the right stakeholders, and maybe we can use or influence this pot of money to go to underserved communities. Mm-hmm. Here are the 5 ways you can do that. Corporations, foundations, stakeholders, or otherwise. So, I mean, that's like those big aha moments that tie to like systems level change are the ones that kind of jazz me. I mean, that's the policy wonk geek in me coming out. But those are the situations that I think really help America become what it needs to be.
Yeah, I think you just really quick. Yeah, when I'm thinking about all that information, if a new policy comes out, it is necessary to be able to break it down simply for people and pass that information on, because how many of those people who need some of that or access to that money don't know that it's out there. So I think that's really cool that you're able to simplify it so it can spread.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Now, kind of shifting to some, in your career, if you faced any setbacks was there an advantage that came out of it that you might have realized after the fact that, it was an uncomfortable moment, or you maybe, left a job prematurely or something like that, or just you wound up in a situation where you just, you might not have been at the right place at the right time and it was time to move on type thing. I mean, is there anything like that in your career that you can share that's helpful?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's sort of corny to say, but I mean, I failed far more than I succeeded, and that goes back to my days pitching stories at ESPN. I totally believe in some story idea, some concept, and, I'd send it off to the editors and they're like, yeah, not interested, whatever. And then it didn't show up on HBO Real Sports or the New York Times to write about it. I mean, and you're like, I knew it. This is a good one. And they didn't bite. Those were like, frustrating moments. And there were more than a few of them. But the thing I learned is, A, you can't take this stuff personal. B, you can't let it get you down. You've got to be resilient. You've got to be able to accept that your possibly, arguably, perhaps certainly brilliant idea isn't going to resonate with a particular person in that particular moment, right? It just isn't. But it can't slow you down. And the key is just to keep going, keep planting seeds, keep believing in yourself, and good stuff will happen. And then also just kind of defining your possibilities a little broader. I mean, a lot of newspaper reporters are they're losing their jobs, and they're really talented, and they've struggled to reconceptualize what their skill set is and how it could be applied. I mean, could they go to work for foundations or law firms or, other nonprofits? I mean, they have extremely good skills, but they're only thinking about how to produce content in a certain setting and using the same kind of, principles that are applied there. So I've always been able to kind of reinvent myself a little bit lucky. I mean, I started out in newspapers when they were going great. The internet came along. I just this is cool. I'm jumping into that, and I was the youngest NBA beat writer at one point, or one of the youngest. And, I jumped into the internet. And then when ESPN came in, I got excited about the cross-platform packages. And then when Aspen came along, I mean, you got to get excited about where the green space is, where the new opportunities are, and believe in yourself. You're going to be able to get in there, and you're going to be able to figure it out, through a lot of trial and error.
And I love your fire, water, and green space piece. I think I might adopt that at some level in some of my classes explaining concepts. But and I have been touting is what you're saying essentially is you got to be flexible right now and be prepared to make significant shifts in your careers along your career journey. So, going back to your education versus experience, if you will, what did you find most valuable in your career? The foundation that was established at the University of Florida, or just a general journey that you took and the road less traveled in the bumps that you might have taken along the way and the failures, as you pointed out a moment ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, no discredit to UF or my high school or otherwise, but the vast majority of my education, 95% of it, has been in non-classroom settings. Yeah. Now, as a reporter, that's easier to do. I mean, my job was to get curious about something, convince my editor to let me go pursue it. I'd travel around the country, around the world. I'd be in South Sudan or this place or that place. I get to meet people I'd never get to meet ordinarily. My job was to ask them questions that, that would be impolite in regular society. And then I go back and have to organize my ideas into what I've learned or what I think, and then a paycheck would show up. I mean, for a curious person, it's an amazing way to live your life. And I get educated in the process, I wrote a book back in 2008, Game On, the All-American Race to Make Champions of Our Children. I mean, it's like 3 college dissertations. So again, this is a non-school setting, but University of Florida plays a role in that, right? That thing about critical and creative thinking and critical thinking, that started with a class I had at the University of Florida, creative and critical thinking. How to write effectively. I had one teacher at UF who really talked about how good narrative writing consists of 3 things. It's anecdotes, descriptive detail, and lively quotes, right? Those are the components of good writing. And those are just you can pull these ideas that make sense and you sort out all the rest, right? I was I had a business minor at Florida. Now I'm essentially running a small business and a small nonprofit business. I mean, so some of the ideas around that, I'm sure have informed by my thinking. So,
okay,
it mattered. UF mattered.
I appreciate that. For that, I appreciate it.
Social education.
Right. Yeah. No, it's distinction between those two. Absolutely. So great. So how do you maintain a work-life balance?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Because my personal and my professional are so overlapped. I mean, I care about play, and I play a lot. I live in California now, in San Clemente, and we moved here because this is like a very recreation-oriented community. I ride my bike, I surf, I play beach volleyball, I play pickleball, I do all that, and the whole time I'm thinking and grabbing ideas and going back and taking notes, and my kids play sports. I'm always thinking about that. They ended up, my son is on the cover of my book. I mean, I don't know where, work ends and life begins. I don't know. I mean, I think it's not even a matter. What it is just a matter of how can you just sort of stay healthy in pursuing your passion, right? Yeah. So what that means is I make sure to get out of my chair and I do go play with people. I make sure I try to have social experiences here and there, but it's certainly not tied to any kind of work day. well, 9 a.m. I start thinking, and 5 p.m. I stop thinking. I mean, no one changes the world with that kind of idea, and I don't relate to it, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
Go. What I tell my team is go. I mean, just get your job done whenever you need to get it done. I don't care. You could take off all Tuesday afternoon to go play because you need it for your own health and sanity. But this project's due on Friday, so figure out your schedule yourself. Let's agree on the deliverables ahead of time. So
that's a great perspective. Not to mention, I'm somewhat jealous of the California lifestyle you're leading. So
it's just like Florida. It's like
Florida. You got the bigger waves, anyways. There, the surfing was the trigger in my head. I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so kind of pivoting to our students and those who are interested in like the sport for development field, can you speak to any advice that you would give them on how to enter in or get jobs in your industry?
Yeah, so I guess I got to figure out what my industry is. Are you talking about sports business, or are you talking about the nonprofit world or sports nonprofits? Or
yeah, probably it could be anything from, you do have a lot of different, because I was like, well, you could do the sport for development work, some of the research you guys work on with the Aspen Institute and organizations you guys partner with could be one thing, and then maybe running a nonprofit, because we do have students interested in both of those as well. So
gotcha. Well, what I would say is there's no one pathway to it. And I will also say that the people who often make a real difference in the nonprofit world didn't come out of a nonprofit like pathway. They came out of the business world, or in my case, if we want to consider me whatever has been doing some good things, I came out of a journalism world, a storytelling world. I mean, I'm different than most, than a lot of the people at Aspen running programs. I mean, I have a content creation background, and I have a network that's different, and I have a go-go mentality as well. I mean, ESPN was a get it done kind of culture. It was if you need to get something done at 10 o'clock at night, you got it done at 10 o'clock at night. So, very performance oriented. So I don't know. There is no real one pathway. What I would just encourage people to do is figure out what matters to you. How can you leave the world better than it was given to you? What topic or what issue or what opportunity do you feel like you can attack with a certain set of skills that you might develop over time? And then it might start out with, some corporate training and at some place where you stay for a few years, but you start working your way into a nonprofit space. It might start out with working for a professional sports team or a minor league sports team, or there's no one way into this. And I wish I could give you better guidance. It just starts with like, what's your passion and having a certain approach to your work.
No, that's really helpful. I mean, I think anybody interested in a nonprofit, that is you're not really necessarily guaranteeing any sort of large salary. So you're not going to be doing it for the money. What keeps you going is that drive is from the passion. And it's interesting, as you talked about it, and you seem very passionate about what you're doing and what you've done in the past. And so I'm curious, have there been times for you, like students who might not know what their passion is, or maybe they just hit a road where they're like, maybe I need to change jobs or do something different. Can you, do you have any experience where you've had to really self-reflect and maybe make a change, or, speak to some of those? I think it's easy to think your resume is amazing, right? So it's like, wow, but everyone has those moments where you're like, what do I do when I hit a roadblock or I'm uncertain? Any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, believe in yourself, number one, throughout. And then number two, be aware of those moments when you find people who believe in you, or who's a champion of you. My career has always been advanced because there was someone who decided Tom Farrey's got talent. And I'm going to invest in him. I believe in him. really. And if those people didn't come along, the opportunities that I had after that would not have come along, certainly at that. So I just be aware of that. Be aware of that. I mean, and if you have that confidence about yourself and you're really, truly, you're going to find people here and there who believe in you. And once you have that champion, a world is going to open up in whatever space that might be, and they go into it. And then if that champion leaves the company or whatever else it may be, and you've got no one else there to necessarily kind of move your career along, that's fine. Start looking for a new opportunity and a new champion that can propel you.
No, that's great. That's super helpful. Just be who we surround ourselves with along the way, for sure. And then what qualifications, like when you're looking not specifically for one role in your organization, or but what are some core qualifications you look for in people that you want to hire? If you could give some of those, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So a go-getter, someone who's going to jump, has my instinct of, running to fire, running to water, and running to green space. That's really important. Number two is a problem solver. So someone who looks at a situation and doesn't say what's wrong about it or whatever, but someone says, "Ooh, here's the good solve there." That's extremely important. Number three, someone who is resilient, who is willing to put their idea on the table. And if it doesn't stick in that particular moment, isn't going to be so deflated that they stop contributing, right? And that's challenging. I understand. I totally appreciate how challenging that is. I've been in a situation where I've had, 10 straight ideas rejected. It's very, very hard. But I like those people who can can dialogue and add something in conversation, think, propose, be smart, and then and that's good enough, So yeah, those type of things, and then also just has, is a good communicator, oral communicator, and a written communicator is especially important these days, and everybody's on Zoom and it's far away. I mean, stuff getting lost in translation can cause real disruption with teams. And then high levels of trust. I mean, is this someone I can trust? Someone who is going to operate, not just with me, but within the team in a manner that, there's a level of transparency and a belief that we're all on the same team. We're all in this together. They're not sniping at each other behind the scenes or organizing to hold someone down, I have no time for that. So just be a transparent, good actor. So that's what I look for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Brian, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm just excited to get to this next rapid fire stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, before I get to the rapid fire, I'll tell you what that is, Tom, in 1 second. But do you mind if any of our students who are watching this or will watch it later on and they'd like some more information, do you mind if I pass along your email to them if they reach out to us?
Yeah, sure. Feel free.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So the 1 minute fire away questions, basically how it works is I put a timer on for 1 minute and then I'm going to ask you some questions. They're really easy. For instance, burgers or pizza is one of them. I won't ask you that because I just asked you, but that's what we're going to go through questions similar to that. And then you're going to see how many you can get through in 1 minute before the timer goes off. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Favorite sport to play?
Beach volleyball.
First job?
Selling china door to door in Hollywood, Florida, to senior citizens who had no need or interest in that.
This is why I love this. Okay, current hobby.
Current hobby? Surfing.
LinkedIn or Twitter?
Twitter.
Netflix, Prime Video, or cable?
Netflix.
Favorite animal?
Cheetah.
Mountains or beaches?
No, dolphin.
There you go.
Favorite time of day?
7 a.m.
And then name 2 daily habits.
Eating my wife's incredible cooking. Is that a habit? And
There you go.
playing chess with my son.
Okay, time. You were quick. That was great, Tom.
That was good.
Got through all of them.
I love a challenge.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, thank you so much again for joining us today and taking the time to share your professional endeavors. I'm certain that University of Florida students, staff, alumni are very appreciative of your thoughts and insights. So with that being said, before we depart, do you have any concluding remarks or insights to share before we go?
No, just thank you for having me. This has been really terrific, and I hope anybody who listens to this podcast, Gators, you can have a real impact on the world. Use your talents in a way to leave this place better than was given to you. A purpose-driven life is super rewarding. So go get it.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today. We are your hosts, Brian Avery and Shelley Lyle. Go Gators.
Go Gators. Thank you, Tom.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Appreciate it.